Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Amanda Miller. I'm the Director of Programs and Marketing at Greensboro Downtown Parks, who manages this residency program. I also serve as the residency coordinator for the program. So if you're selected as the artist in residence for 2022, we'll be working directly together for the time that you're with us. So I'm so excited to have you all here joining us today. I hope we can answer any questions you have about the residency and the application process. And Alexandra Joy Warren, our 2021 artist in residence, is here on the call with us. So she can help answer any questions from her perspective as a former artist in residence. She also helped contribute largely to the development of this program by piloting her project, A Wicked Silence, with us at the parks last year. So she can provide a lot of insight into what it was like actually working with us at the parks and bringing her artwork to this community space and having it kind of realized in this very unique way. So before we get started, I just wanted to thank you all again for being here. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the guidelines and the application before coming on this call? Have they at least had a chance to view those? Yeah, okay. Great. Okay, cool. So I just wanted to make sure everyone had some familiarity with that. I am going to very briefly go over kind of the baseline of what this program is, what the guidelines are, eligibility requirements, basics around project development, things like that. The application, I have a very short budget template that I put together for you guys, just so you could see kind of what we're looking at for that. Get an idea for helping to develop that part of your application. And then we will open it up for questions from there. Does that sound good? Okay, great. So I am going to share my screen. Okay. Everyone can see that? Great. All right, so if you are on our website, everyone was able to sign up for this info session. So seems like you guys found your way around pretty easily on there. But in case you ever come to our website and you're not entirely sure where to go to find the information that you need, if you go to our programs tab under the homepage of our website, Artist in Residence, that will take you directly to this page, which will give you all the information that you need as you're preparing your application. So on this page, under current opportunities, you'll see that applications are officially open. We are accepting applications for this program through 11:59 p.m. on January 16th. So that is when you will need to submit your digital application by. We will be notifying select finalists. We have a pretty diverse committee of roughly 5 arts advocates and professionals from our community who will be selecting finalists to notify of scheduled interviews with the committee. So this will give you a chance to actually speak more directly to the committee about your project, really contextualize the meaning and the relevancy behind your work, give us some more insights. It really allows you to lend a voice to your project, because we know that just writing the proposal doesn't always allow you to give it enough color and enough breadth. And this will really allow you to kind of explain more about your work and what you're thinking about. So select finalists will be notified by January 31st. And then we are planning to identify the final artist or arts collective selected for the residency no later than February 18th. That's a final deadline. So that will be the absolute last day that you would notify, you would find out about that. So most likely you'll find out sooner than that, which would be great. Okay. So this is a paid residency experience. If you read the guidelines, you know a little bit more about that. We have allocated up to $15,000 of Greensboro Downtown Parks funding to this residency program. So that includes some allocated funds to specific areas of your project. 2 of those areas are promotion and documentation. So we handle all of the marketing and the documentation of your artistic process and final project on your behalf so that you don't have to worry about that. And you can focus more directly on the actual creation of the artwork, the community engagement elements, and the final presentation. In addition to that, we include allocated funds for artist stipends, of which no more than $3,000 will be allotted to an individual artist. So that does not mean if you're an arts collective, for example, who's applying and you've got multiple artists that are going to be paid as a part of this project, the $3,000 limit is for one single working artist, not for the whole arts collective. And then beyond that, anything left over from those allocated funds go to support any other areas of your project development. So that can include things like art supplies, paints, canvases, costuming, production, lighting, sound technicians, all of those extra things that might need to come into play when we're talking about getting your project off the ground. So when you're on this webpage, one of the first areas you guys have probably already taken a look at are the guidelines for the residency program. One of the most important elements about this program for artists to understand is that this is a collaborative project with the urban park environment. So the idea is that you're developing a proposal in community, in collaboration, in partnership with these settings and with the spaces, the people that those spaces bring together in order to create something entirely site specific. I'd like to ask Alex, actually, when you were thinking about your project, just to lend a little insight into what this element of the Artist in Residence program kind of meant for you and your work.
Sure. So I had a project in mind that I had been developing before the pandemic. And obviously in March of 2020, everything screeched to a halt. And so for me, I decided to take that time to think about what that project could be. So I didn't immediately pivot to like online things. I really just took some time to think. And the more I started to think about it, the more time.
Alex, I think
I knew that I would want to know exactly how. So I thought that the parks would be a great place to do that. Can you hear me still? Am I frozen?
Yes, we lost you for a second, but you're back.
Yeah.
There go again.
Yeah.
I apologize. But yes. Okay.
Okay. All right, I think we keep losing Alex a little bit, but she'll jump back on in a second, I'm sure. But yeah, so the most important aspect of this project is just to make sure that you're creating your proposal in context with the park settings, so that we have something that's developed that's really site specific, that's something that you couldn't really develop elsewhere. So that's just important to keep in mind when you're thinking about what this project is going to be. And part of the reason for this Artist in Residence program for us at the parks is that we already have seen so many artists utilize these spaces to develop and hone their work practices. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were investing in a designated opportunity for a local Guilford County artist. Let me let Alex back in there. For a local Guilford County artist to really be able to spend a designated amount of time invested in their work and in communication with these spaces. It also works to demystify artistic processes for our community by getting artists out of their studios, out of their dance workshops, out of their theaters, and into the public environment to create work directly with the community. So that's ultimately what this residency is about. Eligibility wise, we're seeking artists across a variety of disciplines. So whether you're a poet, a writer, a performer, if you're a filmmaker, musician, visual artist, we are accepting proposals across the board. Multidisciplinary arts approaches and new media are also welcome to submit proposals as well. We're looking at emerging and or mid-career artists. Our ideal artist in residence for 2022 is someone who has worked within the community for, at least a year or more, who has a roster of projects that they have already worked on, but who hasn't necessarily had that big break kind of moment. We're really looking to create an opportunity for someone who is going to get a lot of publicity and exposure, both within the media, but also within our community, to create more opportunities to further their work. We are currently only accepting proposals from Guilford County based artists or arts collectives. So the lead artist either needs to reside in Guilford County, or the arts organization that they're applying for must be based out of Guilford County in order to qualify. But your collaborators, if you have other artists that you're anticipating bringing on with you, things like that, they are welcome to be from outside of Guilford County. That is not a requirement. It is only the designated lead artist or arts collective must be from within Guilford County. This is a part-time residency. What this means is that we are expecting the selected artists to commit at minimum 100 hours to the total in-park residency experience. But how we organize that 100 hours is going to be in collaboration with the parks and the artist. So there's no expectation that you're here, 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, or whatever it is. We are going to determine what works for you and what works for your project, with keeping in mind that 100-hour minimum commitment. And we will be selecting one lead artist or company for this year's residency. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here, because you can read the guidelines regarding what the project should be about. We are asking that the projects are reflective of themes relevant to the parks and the community that we serve. So you should have at least one key area or theme that your project addresses that connects to the parks in some way. So that could be local history, cultural identity. It could be exploring the space and the place. It could be about environment. There are so many elements that you could draw from that are relevant to the parks. And part of your proposal is pitching to us how you see the themes around your work connecting to the space and what we do as an organization. So I'm not going to go through that. Project duration, you can spend up to 1 year on this project. So that would be 1 year from the time that you are notified of being selected as the artist in residence. So from February 18th, for example, if you need to extend your project through to 2023, wow, you would have at least through February 18th of 2023 to finalize that project. Now, we don't envision most of the projects that you're going to propose will need that long in order to come to fruition. The minimum amount of time that we're requiring for in-park activation is 4 months. So minimum 4 months, up to 1 year. And then bearing in mind that minimum 100 hours within that time frame. Okay, you will be expected to stick to a regular schedule. So that might mean I'm going to do rehearsals twice a week in the parks every Tuesday and Thursday from 6 to 7. That's what we mean by a regular schedule. It's something that we can publish for the community to let them know, hey, the artist in residence is going to be in the space at this time if you're interested in coming by and seeing their process at work. Project location, you probably are already familiar, but with LeBauer and Center City Parks are the two parks that we manage in downtown Greensboro. They collectively offer 5+ acres of green space. We would love for the artist in residence to explore all areas of both parks. That does not mean that the final project must be across both parks or must touch multiple areas in one park. The final project could be in one specific area of either park space. But during the process of creating the work, we would really like the artist to explore multiple areas of both park spaces, because that is a part of creating this site-specific work where you're really getting to know what these spaces are, how the community utilizes them, and creating the work in process with that. Okay. The application process, kind of went over that already, due by January 16th at 11:59 p.m. There is no fee to apply. It is entirely free to submit that application. We're also not requiring any kind of like recommendation letters or anything like that for artists to submit. Just the proposal itself is all you need to do. Part of that proposal, we'll look at the application in a second, but it basically just includes some background information from you as an artist, your past work, your kind of narrative as an artist, and then some information about the actual project proposal in itself. We are requiring a few artist samples to be submitted. You have to submit samples, I believe it's 3 of them from within the last 5 years, and you can submit, I believe it's up to 3 content pieces representative of those 3 works. So if you have one piece of artwork and you have 3 photos of that artwork that show different kind of perspectives of the work or whatever, you can submit all 3 of those photos as a collection around one art sample, if that makes sense. And I can answer more questions about that when we get into that. And then we kind of already went over the timeline for notifying the selected artist. Budget, as I mentioned already, the $15,000 cash value, that is what we have budgeted for this residency that we plan on spending on your project. This is not a grant for which you are applying, so it is not, here I'm applying for this grant, I'm going to get $15,000 to manage all myself as an artist. That is not how this residency is formulated. We are going to collaborate together on a budget, and we have designated areas that we will be investing in on your behalf for your project. One of the things that I want to make sure that you understand is that we handle all of the promotion and documentation entirely on your behalf. I think I mentioned that already. So when we're talking about things like collaborating with a video producer or a photographer, when we're talking about making graphics for print materials, when we're talking about promoting things on social media, all of that, we handle that on your behalf. So that you don't have to worry about how am I going to find a video producer to make this project or whatever it is. We want you to be able to focus entirely on just the art making in and of itself. So like I said, that includes allocated funds for promotion and documentation. It includes allocated funds for artist fees and stipends, and then everything else can go to just support the project development. Then we have just some in-kind value. This is really just so that you know, roughly, this is based on Alexandra's project, was roughly about a $35,000 in-kind value. That was not money that we spent on her project. It's just based on the value of the reserved park space, the use of equipment that we already have on site. We have sound equipment and things like that that you would have, you know, access to as an artist, staffing, all of those additional supports that go into your project. I am going to take a pause really quick here to ask if you have any questions about the general guidelines where we are right now. Any questions? I think we're good to move on. Okay, great. All right, so the other thing that's on this website page is the application in and of itself. So you open it up, it's a JOT form. One thing I want to make sure that you know is that you cannot save your work on this application document itself. So my recommendation would be to open up the application, note all of the questions, prepare your responses in a Word document, and then just copy and paste those responses into the final application before you submit. You will notice on some of the questions, there are word counts at the bottom of those questions. They are word counts, not like symbol counts. So you don't have to worry about, letter counts or periods or spaces or anything like that. They're just word counts. So again, when you're preparing your responses in an external document, just run a quick word count on those paragraphs that you're writing before you plop them in to the final form to submit. So we are asking just some basic information. When you are filling this part out, it's whoever the person is applying is who should be the primary contact person. So just keep that in mind. If you're applying as an arts company or collective, it's whoever the key leader is among that collective is who should submit their information here. Email, phone number, and addresses can be your company's email, phone number, and addresses. They don't have to be your personal ones. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. So you don't have to provide us with your personal address unless you are applying as an individual artist and your home address is your working address. Select the type of applicant you are. If you're an arts company, you put the name of the company there. Provide an artist statement. So the artist statement is about kind of the direction of your work. It's more narrative. It's about your mission, how you view the world, and how you utilize your artwork in order to create that view and illuminate that perspective. The bio is more of just kind of your general background of how you got to where you are as an artist, any past educational experiences, if you've done any fellowships with other artists, or if you're influenced by other artists, if you've done any kind of past exhibition work or paid or volunteer opportunities that you've done relevant to your arts work, that's where you would put it in the bio. We are asking if you have any links to any of these sources to just go ahead and plop them in if they're relevant to your arts practice. So I don't need your personal Instagram account unless it has your artwork on it. If you have a company Instagram account, go ahead and put that in there. Website, all of these other things. Our expectation is not for you to put everything in there unless it is relevant. So if you don't have a website yet, if you don't have a company Instagram or any of these other things, that's okay. You can leave that section blank. We only want to see anything that is absolutely relevant to your work. Provide a title for the artistic project. So Alexandra's, for example, was A Wicked Silence. That was the title of her performance. We understand this might be a working title. That's okay. Things can change over time. Just kind of give us a general idea of what you would title for this project. Identify the type of artist that you are working in, the type of arts forms. You can click more than one of those. So if your project touches on multiple forms, go ahead and do that. Short summary, this is something that we would put like in a press release. So if we were to put together a very brief description of what your project is, just a few sentences, up to 3 sentences, that really kind of distills the very basis of what your project is going to be, that's where that section is for. Give us some interest about why you're looking to pursue this residency project. What compels you to create this artwork in collaboration with these spaces? What are you looking forward to doing? What themes are relevant to your work? Providing an overview of the project, kind of discussing a little bit more about what those themes are that you're going to be looking at. Giving us a community engagement plan. So one of the things, if you read the guidelines, that you'll have noted is that we require you to come up with some plan for how you are looking at engaging the community directly in the process of your work. So what that could be a series of workshops. It could be a series of discussions. It could be hands-on art making. Maybe if you're doing something like a collaborative visual arts piece, you could have invite folks to come and join you for specific dates for contributing to that collaborative art piece. We're really open to whatever fits for your project, but kind of giving us some idea of what you're thinking about doing for how you anticipate engaging the community directly in the process of your work and around those themes that you're planning to explore. If you have any other collaborators that you will definitely need to work with for this project, this could be anything. This could be other artists that you're planning on collaborating with. Maybe you're doing a performance and you want to collaborate with a costume maker, a seamstress of some kind to create costumes for the performance. Go ahead and put those folks down. Anyone you can think of that you want to bring on as a collaborator, note them in this section just so that we know how many folks are going to be involved in this project. If you know any folks by name, you can go ahead and put them down and what you want them to contribute to the work. If you're like, I know I need a lighting technician, I'm not really sure who that's going to be, that's okay. Just go ahead and put that you'll know that you're going to need to get one of those kinds of folks, but that you're not yet sure who they're going to be. If you're like a dance company, for example, and you've got like 15 dancers that are going to be working with you, I don't need to know every single solitary one of those for this section. You can just put, we're going to have roughly a company of 15 additional dancers. So that's what this section is for. Project duration. This is when you're going to put dates down for your project. Again, we know that all of this stuff might be subject to change as you develop your project. That's okay. This is like the idea kind of part of your proposal. So just go ahead and put anticipated dates that you're planning to designate for creating a focused amount of time on this project's development. Again, it needs to be a minimum of 4 months and up to 1 year of time. Provide a timeline, just kind of what you're thinking will happen within that duration of time that you put there. You know, we're going to start rehearsals twice a week, starting in March. And then by May, you know, we're going to start kind of the final rehearsals for the performance. We're going to do the community workshops for 3 weeks in April, that kind of thing. Just kind of a general timeline of how you envision. Project budget. I do have a budget sample. Here it is. I do have a little sample budget in case you haven't had to develop a budget for something like this before. We are looking at this like very simply. We don't need like an intense amount of detail. We know that this is a proposal, and so you might not have everything kind of fully realized yet. We're really looking for, do you know how much the actual art that you're going to be creating, roughly how much funding you would need in order to pull that off? And are you thinking about the other areas of your project development, things like, you know, promotion, videography, documentation, stuff like that? Are you at least considering that in your budget? Does your budget go beyond the cost of the $15,000 investment that Greensboro Downtown Parks will be making in your project? If so, do you have a plan for covering the additional costs of the project? Things like that. So really, you can just create 2 tables in a Word document is all you need to do, one for expenses and one for income. If I were to give a recommendation in thinking about that $15,000 investment that Greensboro Downtown Parks is going to make in your project, I would anticipate setting 1/3 aside, so $5,000 aside for artist fees. If you know that it's just going to be you alone and you're not going to have any other additional collaborators or anything like that, then you can go ahead and account for that $3,000 investment for that. But I'm anticipating that a lot of the folks that we're going to get proposals for are going to have other collaborators. So budget at least 1/3 for artist fees, 1/3 for promotion and documentation. So that would be marketing, photography, and video. So that's, again, another $5,000. And then the remaining $5,000 for every other aspect of creating this artwork. That would be my recommendation for that. It's going to be super specific to your project. We know that a visual artist, for example, creating painted works on a canvas might not need as much video documentation as something like, you know, a multi-day performance piece might. So of course, there's going to be some variances there. But if you're starting, you know, at a place of like not really being entirely sure, that would be my recommendation for how to split up that $15,000 budget kind of going forward for this. If you are getting any in-kind services, Maybe you have a collaborator or something like that that you work with regularly and they're going to offer their time in kind for you. Please do note that both in the expenses and income side of things, just so that we can see that. So I put an example here, and I will put this sample budget on our website so that you can go back and reference it as well. And you're, welcome to utilize it as the basis for how you create your budget. But go ahead and put what those in-kind services are going toward and what the value is, and then have that directly reflected in the income side as well, just so that we have a nice even expense and income budget. Your expenses for your project should not exceed the anticipated income for the project. So any additional funds that your project is going to incur, you need to identify, are there any grants that you're looking at? Are you planning on applying for maybe an Arts Greensboro grant to help cover any additional costs that your project might incur? Are we going to need to look at some sponsorships to bring on for this? If you have those already identified, please note them. Things that you're anticipating that you want to apply for, things like that. If you haven't identified that yet, again, put that information in there. Our goal is just to kind of see the bigger picture of what you're thinking of for your budget. The main areas, especially being the ones that are really going to be specific to your project, where your expertise is the only thing that we're going to be able to rely on. Things like project supplies, we're not going to have any concept for what those might cost for your project. Things like production support, again, you're the ones who are going to have to tell us roughly what you're expecting that to cost. So that's kind of the budget. That is essentially it on that. Let me go back to this. A budget narrative is just a description of your budget. It just contextualizes the money a little bit better and kind of explains, yeah, I'm going to be looking for grants. I'm identifying these key grant makers that I'm going to pursue grants for. I have a plan to apply by X date. Or if you don't know that yet, putting that information in there. Feel free to be very candid with the committee about where you are at with your project development. And then the last thing are the work samples. Like I said, 3 original artworks. You can upload a bunch of different file types in this. If you're providing links, if you've got like a really long video project, that's more than 5 minutes, for example, I would recommend uploading it as a link and just putting it in like a Word document with a clickable link, and then uploading that Word document in here instead of trying to upload a giant video file, because you might just be sitting there for a very long time to get that uploaded in there. Again, you can include 3 files for each work sample. And then just briefly describe the work that you're including, just kind of contextualizing how it relates to the project that you're planning on doing, how it kind of showcases your artistry. And then you can provide any other information that you just would like us to know. That's not required. It's just if there's anything else that you want to make sure that we know about before you submit. Okay, I am going to stop talking now. And I want to open up for questions. And I'm going to keep my screen shared for now, just in case you have questions about specific things I can go look at. But I want to open it up to everyone else here.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's a little more vague. So, whatever response works is great. But how do you all define like a successful project? Like what are you looking at, which, will give an idea of what success is for a project like that?
Yeah. I would like to ask Alexandra if her Wi-Fi is working a little better to answer that, since she did go through this process.
Sure. I hope you guys can hear me now. My phone, so hopefully it works. But I think it depends on, this is just my personal opinion, but what your project goal is, right? So I think success, like you determine that. I think in terms of collaboration with the park, though, that you're able to really sort of connect with people. And that might be not necessarily, it would probably make more sense on whatever kind of art form you're doing. So I think success really is, did you achieve the goal that you set for yourself? And then also, did you utilize the park in a way that makes sense for your project and also connects with the community? So I think that really, I mean, it sounds, again, kind of broad, but I think that, to me, that sounds like a successful project.
No, that's super helpful, and I think that's a great answer. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions? Last call questions about the process, about the experience. Okay. All right, great. One thing I forgot to mention, it is in the guidelines, but I think this would be most relevant to a visual artist. We cannot have any permanent installations in the park, or any permanent alterations to the park. Let's put it that way. So if you're considering something like a visual art piece, a sculpture, some kind of installation of some kind, it will need to be considered temporary. Now, temporary just means it can reasonably be removed without a lot of time and money invested in that removal process. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will be removed. So you could create a sculpture for the parks that outlives your residency, for example, but it just means that in the event that we would need to remove that piece, we could. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are a visual artist and are considering creating visual arts installations for the park spaces. And the reason for that is because we would need to go through city council approval, and that can take a very long time to get through for any permanent changes to the parks. Okay, do we have any other questions before we end today? All right, I'm going to stop sharing here. Thank you all so much for joining us. We really appreciate having you here today. I'm so excited to see so many faces and names for those faces I can't quite see. Join us in this. We hope that you will consider applying. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is on our website. It's programming@GreensboroDowntownParks.org. I will be happy to answer any questions you have as you finalize your proposals, and if you're still considering submitting a proposal, and I can help answer any additional questions you might have or concerns before submitting, I'm happy to do so. This meeting will be posted as a video on the Artist in Residence webpage so that anyone who wasn't able to join us can access it and get the information that we gave here today. So unless we have any final questions, last call, everyone good? Oh, wait, I saw a question. Can you apply if you live in Winston-Salem? So that depends. So if you are considering yourself as the lead artist for the project, you must reside in Guilford County, North Carolina. So Winston-Salem is in Forsyth, so that would not qualify. So if you are a part of an arts collective that's based out of Guilford County, you're welcome to apply. If you are an artist who lives in Guilford County, you are welcome to apply. Or if you identify another lead artist who you might collaborate with who lives in Guilford County, they can apply. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Thank you all so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful day and great rest of your week. And like I said, feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.